everything again from zero. I agreed to consider all these crossings: serialism, minimalism, tautology, random architecture, postmodernism, and so on. I've done electronic compositions for orchestra. I've done pictures, radio art, reports, true and untrue ones. Now I compose with all that. Perhaps. I don't know.
USA Today, Monday, September the 14th, 1998. 8 pages of point-by-point expert analysis of the Starr Report and the President's rebuttal, Section 8. Censure option debated. Congress moves towards formal impeachment inquiry. Clinton still strong in polls.
15 septembre. Sur la route entre Durango and Bluff, en passant par Shiprock. Italian sandwich.
Okay, you want the small one or the whole thing?
No, too big. Medium. Do you
Small
have
one?
medium?
6 inch? Maybe. The cheese, American Swiss. Oh, Swiss for me.
Swiss. Yeah, for you.
Okay. For you on your toppings. Lettuce for me. And one? Lettuce. Okay, you want just tomatoes on your sandwich?
No, I want I want
Maybe.
no, I want Italian. I want Italian with
Yeah.
tomato, onion.
Okay. What do you want for your dressing? You have mayonnaise, mustard, vinegar, oil, Thousand Island, like Italian, salt, pepper. Oil? Both. Okay. Thank you.
Do you have to drink something? No beer.
There's non-alcoholic here.
16 septembre. De Bluff à Kayenta, en passant par Monument Valley. Aujourd'hui, c'est 4 jours.
The Bucks. Making a film. Yeah. Other than that.
The Aborigines say we ask them not to, but they don't stop you if you want to. They just ask you to use a mark instead.
Whenever you guys are ready. I didn't expect these down here. You ready?
Sadharma Pundarika, or the Lotus of the True Law. Chapter 1. The unsurpassed, deep, profound, subtle, wonderful Dharma in 100,000 million eons is difficult to encounter. Now that I have come to receive and hold it within my sight and hearing, I vow to fathom the thus come one's true and actual meaning. The Sutra of the Lotus Flower of the Wonderful Law. Chapter 2, Tactfulness.
Like, if I was to say, let's go back.
At that time, the world-honored one, rising quietly and clearly from contemplation, addressed Sariputra. The wisdom of Buddhas is very profound and infinite. Their wisdom school is difficult to understand and difficult to enter. The Buddhas have been in fellowship with countless 100,000 myriad kotis of Buddhas, perfectly practicing the infinite law of all Buddhas, boldly and zealously advancing and making their fame universally known, perfecting the very profound, unprecedented law, and preaching, as opportunity served, its meaning so difficult to understand. Sariputra, ever since I became Buddha, with various reasonings and various parables, I have widely discoursed and taught, and by countless tactful methods have led living beings, causing them to leave all attachments. Wherefore? Because the Tathagata is altogether perfect in his tactfulness and paramita of wisdom. Sariputra, the wisdom of the Tathagata is broad and great, profound and far-reaching. His mind is infinite. His dispositions are unimpeded. His powers, his fearlessness, his meditations, his emancipations, his contemplations have enabled him to enter into the boundless realms and to accomplish all the unprecedented law. Sariputra, the Tathagata is able to discriminate everything, preaching the laws skillfully, using gentle words, and cheering the hearts of all. Sariputra, essentially speaking, the Buddha has altogether fulfilled the infinite, boundless, unprecedented law. Enough, Sariputra, there is no need to say more. Wherefore? Because the law which the Buddha has perfected is the chief unprecedented law, and difficult to understand. Only a Buddha, together with a Buddha, can fathom the reality of all existence. That is to say, all existence has such a form, such a nature, such an embodiment, such a potency, such a function, such a primary cause, such a secondary cause, such an effect, such a recompense, and such a complete fundamental whole. At that time, the world-honored one, desiring to proclaim this teaching over again, spoke thus in verse. Immeasurable are the world's heroes, embracing gods and men in the world. Among all the living creatures, none can know the Buddhas. The Buddha's powers and fearlessness, emancipations and contemplations, and the Buddha's other laws, no one is able to measure. Of yore, I followed countless Buddhas, and perfectly trod the right ways of the profound and wonderful law. During infinite kotis of kalpas, after pursuing all those ways, having obtained the perfect fruit on the wisdom throne, I was able to perfectly understand such great effects as these, the meaning of every nature and form. I and other Buddhas in the universe alone can understand these things. This law is unexpressible. It is beyond the realm of terms. Among all the other living beings, none can apprehend it except the bodhisattvas who are firm in the power of faith. Again I say to Sariputra, the faultless and inscrutable, profound and mysterious law I now have wholly attained. Only I know these truths, as also do the Buddhas of the universe. Know, Sariputra, the words of Buddhas do not differ. In the laws preached by the Buddha, you should beget great strength of faith. After the Buddha's preparatory teaching, he must now proclaim the perfect truth. The Buddha employs tactful powers.
In the
All
Buddhist
beings have various attachments.
The Lotus
He leads
Sutra is unique, not just for its profound teachings, but also for its inclusive approach. It expounds the concept of skillful means, where the Buddha adapts his teachings to suit the capacity of his listeners. This is a reminder that wisdom is not a one-size-fits-all solution, but a journey
respectfully and throughout the night will peacefully rest and in various ways be abundantly benefited. Then Sariputra, desiring to announce this meaning over again, spoke thus in verse. Most high and honored of the living, be pleased to explain the paramount law. In this assembly, countless beings are able respectfully to believe this law. The Buddha already, in his former lives, has taught such living beings. All with one mind, folding their hands, desire to hear the Buddha's words. Be pleased, for the sake of these beings, to condescend to explain it discriminatively. At that time, the world-honored one addressed Sariputra. Since you have already thrice earnestly repeated your request, how can I refuse to speak? Do you now listen attentively to, ponder, and remember? I will discriminate and explain it fully. The Buddha addressed Sariputra. Such a wonderful law as this is only preached by the Buddha Tathagatas on rare occasions, such as the Undambara flower is seen but once in long periods. Sariputra, believe me, all of you, in the Buddha's teaching, no word is false. Sariputra, the meaning of the laws which the Buddhas expound as opportunity serves is difficult to understand. Wherefore, because I expound the laws by numberless tactful ways and with various reasonings and parabolic expressions, these laws cannot be understood by powers of thought or discrimination. Wherefore, because the Buddhas, the world-honored ones, only on account of the one very great cause appear in the world. Sariputra, why do I say that the Buddhas, the world-honored ones, only on account of the one very great cause appear in the world? Because the Buddhas, the world-honored ones, desire to cause all living beings to open their eyes to the Buddha knowledge so that they may gain the pure mind. Therefore, they appear in the world. Because they desire to show all living beings the Buddha knowledge, they appear in the world. Because they desire to cause all living beings to apprehend the Buddha knowledge, they appear in the world. Because they desire to cause all living beings to enter the way of the Buddha knowledge, they appear in the world. Sariputra, this is why it is only on account of the one very great cause that Buddhas appear in the world. The Buddha addressed Sariputra. The Buddha Tathagatas teach only bodhisattvas. Whatever they do is always for one purpose, that is, to take the Buddha knowledge and reveal it to all living beings. Sariputra, the Tathagata, by means of the one Buddha vehicle, preaches to all living beings the law. There is no other vehicle, neither a second nor a third. The laws of all the Buddhas in the universe are also like this, Sariputra. The Buddhas in times past, by infinite, numberless, tactful ways, and with various reasonings and parabolic expressions, expounded the law for the sake of all living beings. All these laws are for the one Buddha vehicle, so that all those living beings who have heard the law from the Buddhas might all finally obtain perfect knowledge. Sariputra, the Buddhas, the world-honored ones, at present innumerable 100,000 myriad kotis of Buddha lands in the universe, who are so greatly benefiting and rejoicing all living beings, these Buddhas, by infinite numberless tactful ways, and with various reasonings and parabolic expressions, also expound the laws for the sake of living beings. All these laws are for the one thing, so that all those living beings who hear the law from the Buddhas finally attain perfect knowledge. Sariputta, all the Buddhas teach only bodhisattvas, desiring to show all living beings the Buddha knowledge, desiring to cause all living beings to apprehend the Buddha knowledge, and desiring to cause all living beings to enter the way of the Buddha knowledge. Sariputra, I, at the present time, am also like them. Knowing that all living beings have many kinds of desires deeply attached in their minds, I have, according to their capacity, expounded the laws by various reasonings, parabolic expressions, and tactful powers. Sariputra, such teachings are all in order to secure perfect knowledge of the one Buddha vehicle. Sariputra, in the whole universe, there are not even two vehicles, how much less a third. You should, with all your heart, believe and discern, receive and keep the word of the Buddha. No word of the Buddha Tathagatas is false. There is no other vehicle but only the one Buddha vehicle. At that time, the world-honored one, desiring to proclaim this teaching over again, spoke thus in verse. Listen carefully to the laws obtained by the Buddhas, which, by infinite tactful powers, they expound for all creatures. What they all entertain in their minds, all the ways they practice, how many times are their desires in their former karmas, good and evil, the Buddha knows all these perfectly. With various reasonings and parables, terms, and tactful powers, he causes them all to rejoice. There are sons and daughters of the Buddha whose minds are pure, who are gentle and clever-natured, and who, in innumerable Buddha regions, have walked the profound and mystic way. On behalf of these sons and daughters of the Buddha, I preach this great vehicle sutra, and I predict that such men and women as these, in the world to come, will accomplish the Buddha way. Through their deep-hearted mindfulness of the Buddha and observance of the pure commandments, these, hearing that they may become Buddhas, are filled throughout with great joy. The Buddha knows their mind and conduct, and therefore preaches to them the great vehicle. In the Buddha lands of the universe, there is only the one law, neither a second nor a third, except by the tactful teaching of the Buddha. But by provisional expressions, he has led all living creatures, revealing the Buddha wisdom. In the appearing of Buddhas in the world, only this one is the real fact. The Buddha himself abides in the great vehicle, in accordance with the law he has attained, enriched with powers of meditation and wisdom, and by it he saves all creatures. I, proving the supreme way, the great vehicle, the universal law, if I convert by a smaller vehicle even but one human being, I shall fall into grudging, a thing that cannot be. If men and women turn in faith to the Buddha, the Tathagata will not deceive them. For he has no covetous and envious desires, and is free from all the sins of the laws. So the Buddha in the universe is the one being perfectly fearless, and I am worshipped by countless multitudes for whom I preach the seal of reality. Know, Sariputra, of yore I made a vow, wishing to cause all creatures to rank equally without difference with me. According to the vow I made of old, now all has been perfectly fulfilled, for converting all living beings and leading them to enter the Buddha way. Whenever I meet any creatures, I teach them all by the Buddha way. When a son or daughter of the Buddha has fulfilled his or her course, in a world to come, he or she becomes a Buddha. Only by my powers of tactfulness do I manifest the three-vehicle law. For all the world-honored ones expound the one-vehicle way. Now let all in this great assembly be free from doubts and perplexities. The Buddhas do not differ in their statements. There is one only and no second vehicle. In the past countless kalpas, innumerable extinct Buddhas, in hundreds, thousands, and millions, whose numbers cannot be counted, all such world-honored ones as these, with various reasonings and parables, and innumerable tactful powers, have proclaimed the various laws. But all these world-honored ones proclaim the one vehicle law, converting numberless creatures to enter the Buddha way. Moreover, the great holy masters, knowing that which all the worlds of gods, men, and other creatures deeply desire in their hearts, in addition, by varying tactfulness, assist in revealing the first principles. If there are any beings who have met the former Buddhas, if, having heard the law, they have given donations, if they have kept the commandments and have been persevering, been assiduous, meditative, and wise, having kept these various ways of happiness and virtue, such beings as these have all attained the Buddha way. After the extinction of Buddhas, men and women with good and soft minds for the truth, such living beings as these have all attained the Buddha way. After the extinction of Buddhas, those who worshipped their relics and built many kotis of sorts of stupas, with gold, silver, and crystal, with moonstone and agate, with jasper and lapis lazuli, clearly and broadly decorated, handsomely displayed on every stupa, or those who built stone shrines of sandalwood and aloes, eaglewood and other woods, of brick, tiles, and clay, or those who in the wilds raised earth for Buddha's shrines, even children in their play who gathered sand for a Buddha stupa. All such beings as these have attained the Buddha way. If men or women, for the sake of Buddhas, have erected images carved with the characteristic signs, they have all attained the Buddha way. Or those who, with the precious seven, with brass, red and white copper, with wax, lead and tin, with iron, wood and clay, or with glue and lacquer, have adorned and made Buddha's images. All such ones as these have attained the Buddha way. Those who have painted Buddha's images with 100 blessing-adorned signs, whether done by themselves or by employing others, have all attained the Buddha way. All such ones as these, gradually accumulating merit and perfecting hearts of great pity, have attained the Buddha way. Indeed, by influencing the bodhisattvas, have saved countless creatures. If men or women to the stupas and shrines, to the precious images and paintings, with flowers, incense, flags, and umbrellas, have paid homage with respectful hearts, or employed others to perform music, beat drums, blow horns and conchs, panpipes and flutes, play flutes, harps, guitars, gongs, and cymbals, such mystic sounds as these, all played by way of homage, or with joyful hearts, by singing, have extolled the merits of Buddhas, even though in but a low voice, these two have attained the Buddha way. Even anyone who, with distracted mind, with but a single flower, has paid homage to the painted images, shall gradually see countless Buddhas. Or those who have offered worship, were it merely by folding the hands, or even raising the hand, or by slightly bending the head, by thus paying homage to the images, gradually see innumerable Buddhas, and attain the supreme way, extensively saving countless creatures, and enter the formless nirvana, as when firewood is finished, the fire dies out. If any, even with distracted mind, enter a stupa or temple, and cry but once, Nama Buddha, they have attained the Buddha way. If any from the Buddhas of the past, whether in existence or already extinct, have heard this law, they have all attained the Buddha way. All the future world offerings, infinite in their number, all those Tathagatas, also by tactful ways, preach the law. All of the Tathagatas, by infinite tactful ways, save all creatures and enter the Buddha's faultless mission. Those who hear the law, not one fails to become a Buddha. This is the original vow of the Buddhas. By the Buddha way which I walk, I desire universally to cause all creatures to attain the same way along with me. Though the Buddhas in future ages proclaim hundreds, thousands, copies, countless schools of doctrine, in reality they are but the one vehicle. The Buddhas, the honored ones, know that nothing has an independent existence, and that Buddha seeds spring from a cause. So they reveal the one vehicle. All things abide in their fixed order. Hence, the world abides forever. Having apprehended this on the wisdom throne, the leaders proclaim it in tactful ways. Whom gods and men pay homage to, the present Buddhas in the universe, whose number is as the sands of the Ganges, and who appear in the world for the relief of all creatures, these also proclaim such a law as this. Knowing the supreme nirvana, though by reason of their tactful powers they display various kinds of ways, really they are but the one Buddha vehicle. Knowing the conduct of all creatures, what they entertain in their deepest minds, the karma they have developed in the past, their inclinations and zeal, and their capacities, keen or dull, with various kinds of reasonings, parables, and narrations, as they could respond, so have they tactfully taught. Now I also, in like manner, for the relief of all creatures, by various kinds of doctrine, promulgate the Buddha way. I, by my power of wisdom, knowing the natures and inclinations of creatures, tactfully proclaim the laws which cause all to obtain gladness. The reason why the Tathagata appears is for preaching the Buddha wisdom. Now is the very time. Now I am glad and fearless. In the midst of the Bodhisattvas, I frankly put aside tactfulness and only proclaim the supreme way. You Bodhisattvas hearing this law, having got rid of the nets of doubts, will all become Buddhas. In the same fashion that the Buddhas, past, present, and future, preach the law, so also will I now proclaim the undivided law. The appearing of Buddhas in the world is far apart and of rare occurrence. And when they do appear in the world, with equal rareness do they proclaim this law. Even in infinite countless kalpas, rarely may this law be heard. And those who are able to listen to this law Men and women such as these also are rare. So he who, hearing the law, extols it joyfully, and utters but one single word of it, has already paid homage to all the Buddhas in the three worlds. Such a one is exceedingly rare. Be you free from doubts. I am the king of the law, and declare to all the assembly, I, only by the one vehicle way, teach the Bodhisattvas that this wonderful law is the mystery of all the Buddhas. There are beings, modest and pure, devoted to seeking the Buddha way. For such as these, I must widely extol the one vehicle way. Know, Sariputra, the law of the Buddhas is thus. By myriads of kotis of tactful ways, they proclaim the law as opportunity serves. The law of the Buddhas is thus. By myriads of kotis of tactful ways, they proclaim the law as opportunity serves. But you already know the expedient, tactful ways of the Buddhas, the leaders of the world. Have no further doubts. Rejoice greatly in your hearts, knowing that you will become Buddhas. The Lotus Sutra, Chapter 3, A Parable. Then Shariputra said to the Buddha, World-honored one, I now have no more doubts or regrets. I personally have received assurance of supreme awakening from the Buddha. But these 1,200 who are mentally free, while they were at the learning stage in the past, were always taught by the Buddha, who said, My Dharma can free you from birth, old age, disease, and death, and enable you to finally attain nirvana. These people, some still in training, and some no longer in training, being free from views of self and about, quote, existence or non-existence, thought they had attained nirvana. But now, hearing something they have never heard before from the world-honored one, they have fallen into doubt. Thus, world-honored one, I beg you to give causal explanations to the four groups, so that they may be free from doubt and regret. Then the Buddha said to Shariputra, Did I not tell you before that when the Buddhas, the world-honored ones, by using causal explanations, parables, and other kinds of expression, teach the Dharma by skillful means, it is all for the purpose of supreme awakening. All these teachings are for the purpose of transforming persons into bodhisattvas. But, Shariputra, let me once again make this meaning still more clear through a parable, for intelligent people can understand through parables. Shariputra, suppose in a village or city or in a certain kingdom there was a great elder. He had many fields, houses, and servants. His house was large and spacious, but had only one gateway. Many people lived in the house, 100, 200, or even 500. Its halls and rooms were old and decaying, its walls crumbling, its pillars rotting at the base, its beams and rafters falling down and dangerous. All over the house, at the same moment, fire suddenly engulfing the house in flames. The children of the elder, say 10, 20, or even 30, were in this house. The elder, seeing this great fire spring up on every side, was very alarmed and thought, Though I can get out safely through the flaming gateway, my children are in the burning house, enjoying themselves, engrossed in play, without awareness, knowledge, alarm, or fear. Fire is closing in on them. Pain and suffering threaten, but they do not care or become frightened, and have no thought of trying to escape. Shariputra, this elder said to himself, my body and arms are strong. I can wrap the children in some robes and put them on a pallet or bench and carry them out of the house. But then he thought again, this house has only one gateway, and it is narrow and small. My children are young. Knowing nothing as yet of the danger, they are absorbed in their play. Probably they will be burned up in the fire. I must tell them why I am alarmed and warn them that the house is burning and that they must get out quickly or be burned up in the fire. In accord with this line of thought, he called to his children, get out quickly, all of you. Although the father was sympathetic and tried to persuade them with kind words, the children, absorbed in their play, were unwilling to believe him and were neither alarmed nor frightened. They didn't even think about trying to escape. What's more, they did not understand what he meant by the fire, or the house, or losing their lives. They only kept running around playing, barely glancing at their father. Then the elder thought, this house is already going up in a great blaze. If my children and I do not get out at once, we will certainly be burned alive. Now I have to find some skillful means to get my children to escape from this disaster. Knowing what his children always liked, and all the various rare and attractive playthings and curiosities that would please them, the father said to them, the things you like to play with are rare and hard to find. If you do not get them when you can, you will be sorry later. A variety of great goat carriages, deer carriages, and ox carriages are now outside the gate for you to play with. You must get out of this burning house quickly, and I will give you whatever ones you want. When they heard about the rare and attractive playthings described by their father, which were just what they wanted, all of the children, eagerly pushing and racing with each other, came scrambling out of the burning house. Then the elder, seeing that his children had safely escaped and were all sitting in the open square and no longer in danger, was very relieved and ecstatic with joy. Then each of the children said to their father, those playthings you promised us, the goat carriages, deer carriages, and ox carriages, please give them to us now. Shariputra, then the elder gave each of his children equally a great carriage. They were tall and spacious, and decorated with many jewels. They had railings around, with bells hanging on all four sides. Each was covered with a canopy, which was also splendidly decorated with various rare and precious jewels. Around each was a string of precious stones and garlands of flowers. Inside were beautiful mats and rose-colored pillows. Pulling each of them was a handsome, very powerful ox with a pure hide, capable of walking with a smooth gait and fast as the speed of the wind. Each also had many servants and followers to guard and take care of him. Why was this? Because the great elder's wealth was so inexhaustible and his many storehouses so full of treasures, he thought, there is no limit to my wealth. I should not give inferior carriages to my children. They are my children, and I cherish them equally. I have countless numbers of these large carriages and the 7 precious materials. I should give one to each of the children without discrimination. I have so many large carriages, I could give one to everyone in the land without running out. Surely I can give them to my own children. Then the children rode on their great carriages, having received something they had never had before and never expected to have. Shariputra, what do you think about this? Is that elder, in giving equally the rare treasure of great carriages to his children, guilty of falsehood or not?
World-honored one,
Even if that elder had not given them one of the smallest of carriages, he would not be guilty of falsehood. Why? Because the elder, from the beginning, had intended to use some skillful means to enable his children to escape. That is the reason why he is not guilty of falsehood. How much less so when, knowing his own immeasurable wealth and wanting to benefit his children abundantly, he gave them equally great carriages. The Buddha said to Shariputra, "Good, good. It is just as you say, Shariputra. The Tathagata is also like this, for he is a father to the
Like a
whole
lotus.
world.
Like a
He
lotus
has long
bloom
ago completely gotten rid of
in a
all
mud-
fear, distress,
pond.
anxiety, ignorance, and blindness. He has
Remind-
attained immeasurable
Remind us
insight,
that
powers,
beauty,
and freedom from fear,
and
and has
and
gained great
enlightenment
spiritual power
can-
and wisdom. He has fully mastered skillful means and the practice of wisdom. His great mercy and compassion never stop. He also good, whatever will enrich all beings. He was born into this threefold world, an old, decaying, burning house, in order to save living beings from the fires of birth, old age, disease, death, anxiety, sorrow, suffering, agony, folly, blindness, and the three poisons, and to teach and transform them, enabling them to reach supreme awakening. He sees how living beings are scorched by the fires of birth, old age, disease, and death, anxiety, sorrow, suffering, and agony. Moreover, because of the five desires and the desire for wealth, they undergo all kinds of suffering. Because of attachment to desire and striving, they endure much suffering in this life, and later will suffer in a purgatory, or as animals or spirits. Even if they are born in a heaven people, they will experience many kinds of suffering, such as the suffering of poverty and hardship, the suffering of separation from what they cherish, or the suffering from encountering what they hate. Absorbed in these things, living beings rejoice and amuse themselves, without knowing or seeing or being alarmed or frightened. And never being dissatisfied, they never try to liberate themselves. In the burning house of this threefold world, they run about here and there, and though they encounter great suffering, they are not disturbed by it. Shariputra, having seen this, the Buddha thought, I am the Father of all living beings, and should rescue them from suffering and give them the joy of immeasurable, unlimited Buddha wisdom, so that they can find and enjoy nothing. Shariputra, the Tathagata also thought, if I used only divine powers and wisdom, setting aside skillful means, and for the sake of living beings praise only the insight, powers, and courage of the Tathagata, living beings would not be saved. Why? As long as all these beings have not escaped birth, old age, disease, death, sorrow, anxiety, suffering, and agony, and are being consumed in the burning house of the threefold world, how can they understand the wisdom of the Buddha? Shariputra, even though the elder had strength in his body and arms, he did not use it, but only through carefully worked out skillful means saved his children from the danger of the burning house, and then gave each of them great carriages with precious materials. So too, the Tathagata, though he has power and is free from fear, does not use these, but only by wisdom and skillful means rescues and liberates living beings. Shariputra, the elder, seeing his children safely out of the burning house and no longer threatened, thought about his immeasurable wealth and gave each of his children a great carriage. The Tathagata does the same. He is the father of all living beings. He sees innumerable thousands and millions of beings escape from the suffering of the threefold world, from the fearful and perilous path through the gateway of the teachings of the Buddha, and thus gain the joys of nirvana. Then the Tathagata thinks, I have Dharma storehouses of Buddhas with immeasurable unlimited wisdom, power, and freedom of fear. All these living beings are my children. I will give the great vehicle to them equally. The Buddha, wanting to restate this teaching, spoke in verse. I tell you, Shariputra, you and the others are my children, and I am your father. For repeated ages you have burned in the flames of many kinds of suffering. Yet I will liberate all of you and enable you to escape the threefold world. Though I previously taught that you would attain extinction, that was only freedom from birth and death, not real extinction. What you need to do now is just to acquire the wisdom of a Buddha. If there are any bodhisattvas here in this assembly, let them give full attention to hearing the true Dharma of the Buddha. The Buddhas, world-honored ones, use skillful means, and all living beings transformed by them are bodhisattvas. If there are people of little wisdom, deeply attached to clinging and desire, for their sake, the Buddha teaches the truth of suffering. Then all the living will be happy, gain what they never had before. The truth of suffering taught by the Buddha is real and does not change. If there are living beings who do not understand the roots of suffering, who are deeply attached to causes of suffering, and are unable to give them up, even for a moment, for their sake, the Buddha used a skillful means to teach the way. The cause of all suffering is rooted in greed. If greed is extinguished, there will be no place for suffering. The elimination of suffering is called the third truth. For the sake of this truth of elimination, you should practice the way. The escape from all bonds of suffering is called liberation. How can one become liberated? Merely leaving what is false is called liberation. But this is not yet true liberation, for it is not liberation from everything. So the Buddha says that this person has not yet achieved real extinction, because such people have not gained the unexcelled way. It is my attempt to lead them to extinction. I am the king of the Dharma, he to teach the Dharma, appearing in the world to bring peace and comfort to all the living. Shariputra, I teach this sign of the Dharma because I want to enrich the world. Do not recklessly proclaim it wherever you happen to be. If you find any who, hearing it, respond with joy and receive it with gratitude, you should know that they will never backslide. If there are any who believe and accept the Dharma of this sutra, they must have already seen Buddhas in the past, respected and made offerings to them, and heard Dharma. If there are any who are able to believe what you preach, they must have seen me, and also have seen you, and these others, as well as bodhisattvas. This Dharma Flower Sutra is taught for the sake of profound wisdom. If people of shallow understanding hear it, they will become confused and fail to comprehend it. Shariputra, if I described all the sins of those who slander this sutra, in a whole eon I would not be able to finish. For this reason, I tell you especially, do not teach this sutra to people who have no wisdom. But if there are any who are clever, understanding, and wise, learned, and of good memory, who seek the Buddha way, to such people you may teach it. If there are people who already have seen hundreds of thousands of millions of Buddhas, planted many roots of goodness, and been firmly and deeply committed, to such people you may teach it. If there are diligent people, always compassionate, and never sparing of their bodies or lives, to such people you may teach it. If there are reverent people with clearly focused minds who avoid all common foolishness and live alone among mountain streams, to some people you may teach it. What's more, Shariputra, If you see anyone who has given up bad friends and associates with good people, to such people you may teach it. If you see children of the Buddha who observe the precepts strictly, as though they were pure, bright jewels, seeking the vehicle sutra, to such people you may teach it. If anyone is free from anger, upright and gentle in character, always sympathetic toward everyone, and reverent toward the Buddhas, to such people you may teach it. Furthermore, if in the great assembly children of the Buddha with pure hearts use causal explanations, parables, and other kinds of expressions to preach the Dharma freely, without hesitation, to such people you may preach it. I tell you, Shariputra, if I were to describe all of the kinds of seekers after the Buddha way in a whole eon, I would not be able to finish. Such people can believe and understand. For them, you should teach the wonderful Dharma Flower Sutra. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, Sangham Saranam Gacchami, Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, Sangham Saranam Gacchami, Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, Sangham Saranam Gacchami.
Zufällig regulieren mein Tonbandmagnetophon gehabt anscheinend. Getriebe besonderes 1 Minute.
Oh, I had it turned off.
Now we, in the presence of the
Did you
Buddha,
call for a reason?
hearing that Shravakas are predicted to attain perfect enlightenment, are extremely glad in our minds to obtain that which we have never experienced before.
Expecting to show up.
Unexpectedly, we now of a sudden feel this reality. Profoundly do we congratulate ourselves on having acquired so great and goodly and inestimable jewel
On the left side.
without the seeking. We on this day have heard the Buddha's voice teach, and are ecstatic with joy at having obtained the unprecedented. The Buddha declares that we Arahatas will become Buddhas. His peerless collection of treasures we have received without seeking. The sons and daughters of the Buddha, hearing the law from us, day and night, ponder over and with unflagging zeal practice it. Then the Buddhas will predict of him. You and a future generation shall become Buddhas. The mystic law of all the Buddhas can only to bodhisattvas be
Bend the
expounded.
pitch
Yes.
on a snare drum.
No.
No,
it's
on a
not.
deep
Our
tom
leader
tom.
saw
Yes.
it in us alone, because he looked into our minds.
Right.
In his display of rarities, knowing those who delight in trifles, and by his tactfulness, subduing their minds, he instructs them with the greater wisdom. Today we have obtained that which we have never had before, what we have not previously looked for. Now we have unexpectedly obtained a world honored right. Now we have got it and got it. And faultless law obtained clear vision. We, for long, having kept the Buddha's first commandments, today for the first time obtained their truth and reward. In the law of the rock rings, having long practiced holy deeds, now we have attained to the faultless, pure, great truth. We are worthy, because all beings the world honored them with his great grace, by things which are rare, has compassion for and instructs and benefits us. Through countless kotis of kalpas, who could repay him?
And
Buddhas rarely appear with their infinite and boundless, inconceivably great transcendent powers. They are faultless and effortless, the kings of the world, who are able, for inferior minds, patiently to bide their time in this matter, and for common folk attached to externals, to preach as is befitting. Buddhas in the law attain to supreme power, knowing all living beings with their various desires and pleasures, and with their powers, so, according to their capacities, by innumerable parables, they preach the law to them. The Tathagata is the king of the law. Whatever he declares is wholly free from falsity. He expounds all the laws by wise tactfulness. The law preached by him all leads to the stage of perfect knowledge. The Tathagata sees and knows what is the good of all the laws, and also knows what all living beings in their inmost hearts are doing. He penetrates them without hindrance. Moreover, in regard to all laws, having the utmost understanding of them, he reveals to all living beings the wisdom of perfect knowledge. Suppose in the 3,000 great thousandfold world there are growing on the mountains, along the rivers and streams, in the valleys and on the land, plants, trees, thickets, forests, and medicinal herbs of various and numerous kinds, with names and colors all different. A dense cloud spreading over and everywhere, covering the whole 3,000 great thousandfold world, pours down its rain equally at the same time. Its moisture universally fertilizes the plants, trees, thickets, forests, and medicinal herbs, and with their tiny roots, tiny stalks, tiny twigs, tiny leaves, their medium-sized roots, medium stalks, medium twigs, medium leaves, their big roots, big stalks, every tree, big or little, according to its superior, middle, or lower capacity, receives its share. From the rain of the one cloud, each, according to the nature of its kind, acquires its development, opening its blossoms and bearing its fruit. Though produced in one soil and moistened by the same rain, yet these plants and trees are all different. The Tathagata is also like this. He appears in the world like the rising of that great cloud. Universally, he extends his great call over the world of gods, men, and asuras, just as that great cloud everywhere covers the 3,000 great thousandfold region. In the great assembly he sounds forth these words: I am the Tathagata, the worshipful, the all-wise, the perfectly enlightened in conduct, the well-departed, the understander of the world. the peerless leader, the controller, the teacher of gods and men, the world honor. Those who have not yet been saved are caused to be saved. Those who have not yet been set free be set free. Those who have not yet been comforted to be comforted. Those who have not yet obtained their honor to obtain their honor. I know the present world and the world to come as they really are. All knowing, all seeing, the knower of the way, opener of the way, the preacher of the way. Come to me, all you gods and historians, to hear the law. At that moment, numberless thousand myriad copies of classes of living beings came to the Buddha to hear the law. Thereupon, the Tathagata, observing the natural powers of all these beings, being resolved, zealous or indifferent, according to their capacity, preached to them the law in varying, unstinting ways, causing them all to rejoice and joyfully attain much profit. All these living beings, having heard this law, are comforted in the present life, and afterward will be born in happy states, where they will be made joyful by the truth, and also hear the law. Having heard the law, they are freed from hindrances, and according to their capacity in all the laws, they gradually enter the way. Just as that great cloud, raining on all the plants, trees, thickets, forests, and medicinal herbs, and according to the nature of their seed, perfectly fertilizing them, so that each grows and develops. So the law preached by the Tathagata is of one form and flavor, that is to say, deliverance, abandonment, extinction, and finally the attainment of perfect knowledge. If there are living beings who hear the law of the Tathagata and keep, read, recite, and practice it as preached by him, their achievements will not enable them to understand their own nature. Wherefore? Because there is only the Tathagata who knows the seed, the form, the embodiment, and the nature of all these living beings, what things they are reflecting over, what things they are thinking, what things practicing, how reflecting, how thinking, how practicing, by what laws reflecting, by what laws thinking, by what laws practicing, and by what laws attaining to what laws. There is only the Tathagata who in reality sees, clearly and without hindrance, the stages in which all living beings are, just as those plants, trees, thickets, forests, medicinal herbs, and others do not know their own natures, superior, middle, or inferior. The Tathagata knows this unitary essential law, that is to say, deliverance, abandonment, extinction, final nirvana of eternal tranquility, ending return to the Buddha. The Buddha, knowing this, and observing the disposition of all living beings, forces them to test. For this reason, he does not immediately declare to them his complete righteousness. All of you, a most rare thing it is that you should be able to know the law preached by the Tathagata as he sees fit, and be able to believe and able to receive it. Wherefore? Because the law preached by the Buddhas, the world-honored ones, as they see fit, is difficult to discern and difficult to know. At that time, the world-honored one, desiring to proclaim this teaching over again, spoke thus in verse. The Law King, who destroys existence, appears in this world. According to the natures of all living beings, preaches the law discriminating. The Tathagata is greatly to be honored and profound in wisdom. For long he has kept secret this essential truth, not endeavoring to prepare it. The wise, if they hear it, are able to believe and discern. The ignorant doubt and turn away, losing it perpetually. Therefore, according to their powers, I preach to them, with varied reasonings, to bring them the bright news. It is like a great cloud rising above the world, covering all things, a beneficent cloud full of mercy. Flashes of lightning shine and gleam. The voice of thunder vibrates and calls, bringing gladness and peace by night. The sun's rays the earth is moved. The cloud lowers and spreads as if it might be caught and gathered. Its rain everywhere equally descends on all sides, streaming and pouring without stint, reaching all around. On mountains, by rivers, in steep valleys, in hidden recesses, there grow the plants, trees, and herbs. Trees, big or small, the shoots of all the ripening grains, the dry ground is all soot, and herbs and trees flourish together. The one water which issues from hot clouds, trees, thickets, forests, according to their needs, all the trees, superior, middle, field, all, each according to its size, grow and develop roots, stalks, branches and leaves, blossoms and fruits, waiting for by the pouring of the one rain, all become fresh and glossy. Just as their bodies, forms, and natures are divided into great and small, so the enriching rain, though one and the same, yet each flows. In the same manner, the Buddha also appears in the world, like a great cloud, universally covering all things. For the sake of all living beings, illuminates and proclaims the reality of all the life. The great holy world manager, among the gods and men and all the other beings, proclaims the same. I am the Tathagata, the most honored among men. I appear in the world, just like a great cloud, to pour enrichment on all parched living beings, to free them from all misery, and so attain the joy of peace, joy in the world, and the joy of peace. With all your mind, heart, and soul, come all of you here, hear this honorable. I am the Lord, the mighty people. To give peace to all creatures, I appear. For the hosts of the living, preach the law, hearing and seeing the one and only law of emancipation from the land. With one transcendent voice, I proclaim this meaning, constantly taking the great being. I look upon all of the everything, without distinction of faith, mind, and blood. I have no predilection, no limitations or partiality. Ever for all beings, I preach the law easily. As I preach to one person, so I preach to all. Constantly I proclaim the law, never occupied with aught else. Going or coming, sitting or standing, I never weary. according to their size and luxuriate. The law of all Buddhas ever by essential oneness causes all the world's universal. Gradually, by its observance, all attain the way's fruition. By numerous reasonings and various parables, I reveal the Buddha way. This is my tactful method. All Buddhas do the same. What I have now said to you all is the veriest truth. The way in which you walk is the Bodhisattva way. By gradually practicing and learning, all of you will become Buddhas. Assurance of becoming a Buddha. At that time, the world-honored one spoke in verse. In my Buddha eyes I see that in future life, after innumerable eons, this Kashyapa will be able to become a Buddha. In future lives, he will go before and make offerings to 3 million billion world-honored Buddhas. For the sake of Buddha wisdom, he will observe noble practices carefully and make offerings to the highest and most honored of people. Having studied and put into practice all the unexplained wisdom, in his final incarnation, he will be able to become a Buddha. His land will be pure, with lapis lazuli for ground. Many jeweled trees will line the roadside, with golden cords marking off the roads. Those seeing it will rejoice. It will always be fragrant, with rare flowers scattered everywhere. And many kinds of rare, wonderful things will add to its splendor. The land will be level and smooth, without hills or holes. The many bodhisattvas will be countless in number. They will have gentle dispositions, attain the great divine faculties, and honor and embrace the Buddha's great vehicle sutras. You multitude of monks, I have something to tell you now. Give your full attention to what I have to say. My great disciple Subhuti will become a Buddha, whose name will be famous features. He will make offerings to innumerable trillions of Buddhas, and, following the practices of the Buddhas, gradually fulfill the great way. In his final incarnation, he will acquire the 32 characteristics and be as imposing and wonderful as a mountain of jewels. His Buddha land will be unsurpassed in purity and splendor, so that all who behold it will cherish and delight in it. In its midst, the Buddha will liberate innumerable beings, follow the Dharma, be many bodhisattvas. All of them will have keen faculties and turn the irreversible wheel. His land will always be adorned with bodhisattvas. The Dharma preached by that Buddha will be revealed through innumerable divine transformations beyond conception. You multitude of monks, give me your complete attention. In what I teach there is nothing that is not true. This Katyayana will give various kinds of excellent things as offerings to Buddhas. After Buddhas have passed into extinction, he will put up stupas of the 7 precious materials and give flowers and incense as offerings to their remains. In his final incarnation, he will acquire the wisdom of the Buddha and reach impartial, proper awakening. His land will be pure and clean. He will save innumerable trillions of living beings. And from all the living beings of the 10 directions, he will receive offerings. The radiance of this Buddha, none will be able to surpass. His Buddha name will be Jambunada Golden Light. Numberless, uncountable bodhisattvas and travakas, rejecting all ideas of being, will adorn his land. Then the world-honored one once again addressed the great assembly. This, my disciple, the great Mahamagdlayaya, after casting off this body, will see 8,002 million billion world-honored Buddhas. For the sake of the Buddha way, he will make offerings to them and revere them. Where these Buddhas are, he will always observe noble practices, and for innumerable eons embrace the Buddha Dharma. After those Buddhas have passed into extinction, he will put up stupas of the 7 precious materials, with golden spires visible from afar, and with flowers, incense, and music he will make offerings to the stupas of the Buddhas. Having gradually fulfilled the Bodhisattva way in the land called mind-pleasing, he will be able to become a Buddha, named Tamalapatra Sandalwood Fragrance. The lifetime of that Buddha will be 24 eons. For the sake of human and heavenly beings, he will always preach the Buddha way. You, my disciples, full dignity and virtue, 500 in number, will all receive assurance of becoming Buddhas in the future. About the causes and conditions of previous lives, mine and yours, I am about to speak. Listen carefully. The parable of the fantastic castle city. The Buddha said to the monks, "Once, in the past, innumerable, unlimited, inconceivable, and countless eons ago, there was a Buddha named Excellent in Great Penetrating Wisdom Tathagata, one worthy of offerings, truly awakened, fully clear in conduct, well gone, understanding the world, unexcelled leader, trainer of men, teacher of heavenly beings and people, Buddha, world-honored one. His land was named Well-Made, and his eon was named Great-Featured. Monks, since that Buddha passed into extinction, a long, long time has passed. Suppose, for instance, that someone took all of the earth in a 3,000 great thousandfold world and ground it into ink powder, and then passed through 1,000 lands to the east, dropping one speck as large as a speck of dust, and again passing through another 1,000 lands, dropping just one speck. Suppose he proceeded in this way until he had exhausted all the ink made of that earth. What do you think? All these lands, is it possible even for mathematicians or their disciples to count all of them and know the number of all the lands visited? No, it is not, world-honored one. Monks, by the power of the Tathagata's insight, I observe that distant time as if it were today. That Buddha, before he had left home, had 16 sons, the first of whom was named Accumulated Wisdom. Each of his sons had various kinds of rare and attractive toys. But when they heard that their father had attained supreme awakening, they threw away the things they had valued so much and went to pay their regards to the Buddha. Then all these 16 princes, having praised the Buddha in verse, pleaded with the world-honored one to turn the Dharma wheel, saying together, "World-honored one, preach the Dharma, sympathizing with human and heavenly beings, and bringing them great comfort and abundant benefits." Then the kings of the Brahma heavens, with one mind and voice, spoke in verse, saying, "Hero of the world, most honored of people, we beg you to proclaim the Dharma. By power of your great compassion, saving living beings from their suffering and agony." Then the excellent in great penetrating wisdom Tathagata silently consented. He said, "This is suffering. This is cause of suffering. This is the elimination of suffering. This is the way to the elimination of suffering. Then he taught the 12 causes and conditions, namely, ignorance causes actions, actions cause consciousness, consciousness causes name and form cause the 6 kinds of sense. The 6 kinds of sense cause contact. Contact causes sensations. Sensations cause desires. Desires cause attachments. Attachments cause existence. Existence causes birth. Birth causes old age and death, anxiety and sorrow, suffering and anguish. If ignorance is extinguished, then action is extinguished. If action is extinguished, then consciousness is extinguished. If consciousness is extinguished, then name and form are extinguished. If name and form are extinguished, then the 6 kinds of senses are extinguished. If the 6 senses are extinguished, then contact is extinguished. If contact is extinguished, then sensation is extinguished. If sensation is extinguished, then desire is extinguished. And if desire is extinguished, then attachments are extinguished. If attachments are extinguished, then existence is extinguished. If existence is extinguished, then birth is extinguished. And if birth is extinguished, then old age and death, anxiety and sorrow, suffering and anguish are extinguished. When the Buddha taught this Dharma in the midst of the great assembly of human and heavenly beings, 6 million billion myriads of people, because they refused to become attached to anything and freed themselves from fault, obtained profound and wonderful meditation, the 3 kinds of knowledge, the 6 divine powers, and the 8 kinds of liberation. Likewise, when the Buddha preached the Dharma for a second, a third, and a fourth time, tens of millions of billions of myriads of living beings, as numerous as the sands of the Ganges, because they also refused to become attached to anything, were able to free themselves from faults. From this time on, the number of Shravakas was innumerable and unlimited, beyond calculation. Meanwhile, the 16 princes left their home while still young and became novices. Their senses were sharp, and their wisdom bright. They had already made offerings to hundreds of thousands of billions of Buddhas, had observed noble practices in purity, and sought supreme awakening. Together, they said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, all of these innumerable tens of millions of billions of great virtuous Shravakas are already accomplished. World-honored one, now you should reach the Dharma of supreme awakening for our sake. Once we have heard it, we will study and practice it together." World-honored one, we are determined to gain the insight of a Tathagata. What is deep in our hearts, the Buddha must already know. Then the 8 trillion people in the assembly, led by the wheel-turning saintly king, seeing that the 16 princes had left their home to become novices, wanted to do the same. Hearing this, the king permitted them to do so. Then that Buddha, responding to the pleas of the novices after 20,000 eons had passed, in the presence of the 4 groups, preached this great vehicle sutra named the Lotus Flower of the Wonderful Dharma, the Dharma by which bodhisattvas are taught, and which Buddhas watch over and keep in mind. When he had preached this sutra, the 16 novices, for the sake of supreme awakening, all received and embraced it, learned and recited it, and deeply understood it. While this sutra was preached, the 16 bodhisattva novices all accepted it in faith. The Buddha preached this sutra for 8,000 eons without resting. When he had finished preaching it, he entered a quiet room and meditated for 84,000 eons. Then the 16 bodhisattva novices, knowing that the Buddha had entered the room and was meditating quietly, each got on a Dharma seat, and for 84,000 eons taught and explained the wonderful Dharma Flower Sutra everywhere to the four groups. In this way, each of them saved 6 million billion myriads of human beings, as many as the sands of the Ganges, demonstrating and teaching it to them, enriching them and giving them joy, and leading them to aspire to supreme awakening. After 84,000 eons had passed, excellent and great penetrating wisdom Buddha arose from his meditation, went up to the Dharma seat, and quietly sat down. Addressed the whole great assembly, he said, "Such bodhisattva novices as these 16 are very rare. Their faculties are keen and their wisdom bright. They have made offerings to innumerable tens of millions of billions of Buddhas. Under those Buddhas, they have always observed noble practices, received and embraced Buddha wisdom, and opened it up for living beings, leading them to enter into it. Monks, I tell you now that these disciples of the Buddha, the 16 novices, have all attained supreme awakening. In all the lands, in every direction, at the present time, they preach the Dharma and have innumerable hundreds of thousands of billions of bodhisattvas and shravakas as their followers. 2 of those novices became Buddhas in the eastern region. One is named Akshobhya and lives in the land of joy. The other is named Sumeru Peak. 2 are Buddhas in the southeastern region. One named Lion's Voice, the other Lion's Character. 2 Buddhas are in the southern region. One named Space Dweller, the other Ever Extinguished. One of the 2 Buddhas in the southwestern region is named Imperial Character, the other Brahma Character. One of the 2 Buddhas in the western region is named Amida, the other saving all worlds from suffering. Of the 2 Buddhas in the northwestern region, one is named Tamalapatra, spiritually powerful sandal fragrance, the other Sumeru form. Of the 2 Buddhas in the northern region, one is named Cloud Freedom, and the other Cloud Freedom King. The Buddha in the northeastern region is named Destroyer of all the world's fear. And the 16th is I, Shakyamuni Buddha, having attained supreme awakening in this world. Monks, when we were novices, each of us taught and transformed living beings equal in number to innumerable hundreds of thousands of billions times the number of sands of the Ganges. And those who heard Dharma from us attained supreme awakening. Because the wisdom of the Tathagata is hard to believe and hard to understand. All those living beings, innumerable as the sands of the Ganges, who were transformed at that time, are yourselves, monks, and those who will be my Shravaka disciples in ages to come after my extinction. Monks, the Tathagata knows that his time of nirvana has arrived, and that the assembly is pure, firm in faith and understanding, deeply understands the emptiness of things, and enters into deep meditation. Then he will gather together all the bodhisattvas and shravakas and preach this sutra to them. In the whole world, there is no second vehicle for attaining extinction. There is only the one Buddha vehicle for attaining extinction. You should know, monks, that with skillful means the Tathagata reaches deeply into the nature of living beings. He knows that they delight in lesser teachings and are deeply attached to the 5 desires. For their sake, he preaches nirvana, so that if they hear it, they will receive it in faith. Suppose there was a bad road, 500 leagues long, which was steep, wild, difficult, deserted, and far from where anyone lived, a truly frightening place. and a large group of people wanted to go along that road to a place where there were rare treasures. There was a leader, a teacher, a guide, who was knowing and wise, knew the difficult road, where it was open and where closed, and was experienced in leading groups that wanted to pass over it. The group he was leading became tired along the way and said to the guide, "We are utterly exhausted and afraid as well. We can't go any further. Since the road before us goes on and on, now we want to turn back." The guide, a person of many skillful means, thought, "What a shame that these people want to give up on the great and rare treasures and turn back." Having thought about it in this way, he uses his powers of skillful means to conjure up a castle city, which appeared about 300 leagues down the difficult road. Then he said to the group, "Don't be afraid. You must not turn back. Look, see that great city ahead. There you can stop and rest and do whatever you want. Enter this city and you will soon be completely at ease. Later, when you are able to go toward the place of treasures, you should leave the city castle." Then the hearts of the exhausted group were filled with great joy, and they exclaimed about such an unprecedented thing. "Now we can surely escape from this dreadful road and find some peace and comfort." So the group went into the fantastic castle city. Thinking they had been rescued from their difficulties, they were soon calm and comfortable. Then the guide, seeing that the group was rested and no longer weary, made the fantastic city disappear. He said to the group, "We have to go now. The place of the treasures is close. I created this large fantastic city a little while ago just for you to rest in." Monks, so it is with the Tathagata. At present, he is functioning as your great guide. He knows that that road of birth and death and afflictions is steep, difficult, long, and never-ending, but that it must be taken and traveled over. If living beings hear only of the one Buddha vehicle, they will not want to see Buddha or approach him, but think that the Buddha way is long and never-ending, and success something that can be attained only after long suffering from arduous work. The Buddha, knowing that this frame of mind is timid and weak, uses the power of skillful means, preaching the two kinds of nirvana in order to provide a resting place along the way. If living beings remain at these two stages, then the Tathagata will say to them, "You have not yet understood what you have to do. The place where you remain is only close to Buddha wisdom. Take note and think some more. The nirvana that you have attained is not the real one. The Tathagata, through skillful means, has only taken the one Buddha vehicle, made distinctions within it, and spoken of the three." The Buddha is just like that guide, who, in order to provide a place for the travelers to rest, conjured up a great castle city, and, after they rested, told them, "The place of treasures is close. This city is not real, but only something I conjured up." At that time, the world-honored one, wanting to say what he meant once again, spoke in verse. When the guide knew they were rested, he assembled them and said, "Now we should go forward. This city is only a fantasy. Seeing that you were exhausted and wanted to turn back midway, I used my power of skillful means to conjure up this castle city for the time being. Now you must try very hard so that together you can reach the place where the treasure is. I too, in the same way, am the guide for all. I see the seekers of the way becoming discouraged midway through and unable to cross the steep road of birth and death and afflictions. So by power of skillful means, I taught nirvana so they could rest, saying, 'Your suffering is ended. You have finished your work.' When I know they have reached nirvana, and all have become arhats, then I gather everyone together and teach the real Dharma. Through their powers of skillful means, Buddhas make distinctions and teach 3 vehicles, but there is really only one Buddha vehicle. It is for a resting place that the other 2 are taught. Now I teach the truth for you. What you have reached is not extinction. To gain a Buddha's comprehensive wisdom, you have to make a great effort. When you have gained comprehensive wisdom and the 10 powers of the Buddha Dharma and acquired the 32 characteristics, then that is the real extinction. The Buddhas, as guides, teach nirvana to provide rest, but seeing that you are rested, they lead you on to Buddha wisdom.
On peut fermer les yeux, hein, il y a les yeux ouverts, les fermés. Voilà, les yeux c'est la peur et sont les sentiments. Oui. Du kannst mir nichts verbergen. Le regard peut exprimer beaucoup de choses. La haine, l'amour.
Assurance for the 500 disciples. Then the Buddha said to the monks, 500 monks, one by one, will become Buddhas. Each will assure his successor, saying, after my extinction, so-and-so will become a Buddha. The world that he transforms will be like mine of today. Then the 500 arhats, before the Buddha, having received this assurance, were ecstatic with joy. World-honored one, it is as if some man went to a good friend's house, got drunk on wine, and fell asleep. Meanwhile, his friend, having to go away on official business, took a priceless jewel, sewed it into the lining of the man's robe as a gift, and left. The man, being drunk and asleep, knew nothing of this. After getting up, he went on his way until he reached some other land. There he had used much energy and effort finding food and clothing, undergoing exceedingly great hardship, and making do with whatever he could find. Later, his friend happened to meet him and said, "How sad, old friend! Why do you have to do this for the sake of food and clothing? Wanting you to be in comfort and able to satisfy the 5 desires, a long time ago, in such and such year, month, and day, I sewed a priceless jewel into the lining of your robe. It would still be there. In your ignorance, you are slaving and worrying to keep yourself alive. How dumb. Go and exchange that jewel for whatever you need. Then you can be free and have whatever you wish, and be free from all poverty and want." The Buddha is like this friend. When he was a bodhisattva, he taught us to seek comprehensive wisdom, but we soon forgot, neither knowing nor perceiving. Having obtained the way of the arhat, we supposed we had reached the way to extinction. Finding it hard to make a living, we contented ourselves with whatever we could find. Yet our aspiration for comprehensive wisdom was never lost. And now the world-honored one awakens us and says, "Monks, what you have obtained is not final extinction. For a long time, I had you plant good roots for becoming a Buddha, and using skillful means, I showed you the character of nirvana. But you believed it to be the real way to extinction that you had obtained." World-honored one, now we understand that we are really bodhisattvas, assured of attaining supreme enlightenment. For this reason, we are filled with joy, having gained something we never had before. Assurances for arhats, trained and in training. At that time, Ananda and Rahula thought, "We have often thought how happy we would be if we could receive assurance of supreme awakening." Then they rose from their seats, went before the Buddha, prostrated themselves at the Buddha's feet, and together said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, we too should have a share of this. We have put our trust only in the Tathagata. We are known and acknowledged by human and heavenly beings and asuras all over the world. Ananda always attends the Buddha, protecting and keeping the storehouse of the Dharma, and Rahula is the Buddha's son. If the Buddha assured us of supreme awakening, not only would our hopes be fulfilled, but also the dreams of many." Then the 2,000 Shravaka disciples who were in training and no longer in training all got up from their seats, bared their right shoulders, went before the Buddha, put their palms together with complete devotion, looked up at the world-honored one reverently, repeated the wish of Ananda and Rahula, and stood off to one side. Then the Buddha spoke to Ananda. "In the future, you will become a Buddha, named King of the Wisdom of Mountains and Seas, who is unlimited in power, Tathagata, one worthy of offerings, truly awakened, fully clear in conduct, well gone, understanding the world, unexcelled leader, trainer of men, teacher of heavenly beings and people, Buddha. You will make offerings to over 6 billion Buddhas, protect and keep the storehouse of the Dharma, and afterward attain supreme awakening. Teaching and transforming 200 million billion bodhisattvas, as numerous as the sands of the Ganges, you will enable them to attain supreme awakening. Your land will be named Never Lowered Victory Banner. Its ground will be pure with lapis lazuli for earth." Then the Buddha spoke to Rahula. "In the future you will become a Buddha named One Who Walks on Flowers of the 7 Treasures, Tathagata, one worthy of offerings, truly awakened, fully clear in conduct, well gone, understanding the world, unexcelled leader, teacher of heavenly beings and people, Buddha, world-honored one. You will make offerings to Buddha Tathagatas equal in number to the specks dust of 10 worlds, always becoming the eldest son of those Buddhas, just as you are at present. The adornments of the land of this Buddha, one who walks on flowers of the 7 treasures, the length of his life, the disciples transformed by him, his true Dharma, and the merely formal Dharma will be just the same as those of King of the Wisdom of Mountains and Seas, who is unlimited in power. And you will also become the eldest son of that Buddha. Afterward, you will attain supreme awakening." At that time, the world-honored one observed the 2,000 people in training and no longer in training. They were gentle, quiet, and pure-hearted, giving their full attention to watching the Buddha. The Buddha said to Ananda, "Do you see these 2,000 people in training and no longer in training?" "Yes, I see them." "Ananda, these people will make offerings to as many Buddha Tathagatas as there are specks of dust in 50 worlds. They will revere and honor them, and protect and keep their Dharma storehouses. Finally, at the same time, in all the lands of the 10 directions, they will become Buddhas, teachers of the Dharma." At that time, the world-honored one addressed the 80,000 great leaders through the Bodhisattva Medicine King, saying, "Medicine King, do you see in this assembly the innumerable monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen, those who seek to become Shravakas, those who seek to become Pratyeka Buddhas, and those who seek the Buddha way? I assure all such beings who are before the Buddha that if they hear a single verse or a single phrase of the wonderful Dharma Flower Sutra and respond in joy for even a single moment, they will attain supreme awakening." Again, addressing Medicine King, the Buddha said, "What's more, after the extinction of the Tathagata, if there is anyone who hears even a single verse or a single phrase of the wonderful Dharma Flower Sutra and responds in joy for even a single moment, I assure that one also of supreme awakening. Again, if there are any who receive and embrace, read, recite, explain, or copy even a single verse of the wonderful Dharma Flower Sutra, or look upon this sutra with reverence as if it were the Buddha himself, or make offerings to it in various ways with flowers, incense, silk canopies, flags, banners, robes, or music, as well as revering it with palms together, you should understand, Medicine King, that these people have already made offerings to 10 trillion Buddhas, and because they have sympathy for the living, they have been born here among people. Those who are able to receive and embrace the wonderful Dharma Flower Sutra, having given up the Pure Land, have been born here out of sympathy for the living. Medicine King, I tell you now, of the sutras I have preached, among all of them, the Dharma Flower is the greatest." Then the Buddha spoke once again to Medicine King Bodhisattva, the Great One, saying, "My sutras are innumerable tens of millions of billions, whether already taught, now being taught, or to be taught in the future. Among all of them, this Dharma Flower Sutra is the most difficult to believe and the most difficult to understand. Medicine King, this sutra is the storehouse of the hidden core of the Buddhas. Medicine King, in every place where this sutra is taught, or where it is read, or where it is recited, or where it is copied, or even where a roll of it is kept, one should put up a stupa. Such a stupa should be revered, honored, and praised. If any living beings who seek after the Buddha way either see or hear this Dharma Flower Sutra, and after hearing it, believe, understand, and embrace it, then you should know that they are nearer to supreme awakening. Medicine King, it is like a man or a woman who is extremely thirsty and in need of water, and searches for it by digging in a high plain. So long as he or she sees only dry earth, he or she knows that water is still far away. But he does not cease digging, and in time sees damp earth, and then gradually reaches mud. Then he or she is determined to go on, knowing that water is near. Bodhisattvas are also like this. If they have not heard, not understood, or not been able to study and put into practice this Dharma Flower Sutra, you should know that such people are still far from supreme awakening. But if they hear, understand, ponder, and study it, and put it into practice, you may be sure that they are nearer to supreme awakening. The reason for this is that the supreme awakening of every bodhisattva belongs to this sutra. This sutra opens the gateway of skillful means and reveals the principle of the true nature of things. The treasure house of this Dharma Flower Sutra is deep and hidden, and so far away that no human being can reach it. But now, in order to teach, transform, and develop bodhisattvas, the Buddha has opened it up. The site of the treasure stupa. At that time, a stupa of the 7 precious materials, 500 leagues high and 250 leagues wide and deep, sprang up from the earth in front of the Buddha and stood in the air. It was decorated with all kinds of valuable things. It had 5,000 railings, tens of millions of niche-like spaces open to the outside, and it was decorated with countless banners and flags. Garlands of jewels hung from it, and tens of thousands of millions of jeweled bells were suspended from it. From its four sides came the fragrance of Tamalapatra sandalwood, filling the whole world. All its banners and canopies were composed of the 7 precious materials: gold, silver, lapis lazuli, seashell, agate, pearl, and carnelian. The 33 gods rained down Mandarava flowers from heaven as offerings to the treasure stupa. Humans and non-humans, all these tens of millions of billions of beings made offerings to the stupa with all kinds of flowers, incense garlands, streamers, canopies, and music, revering, honoring, and praising it. Then, from the midst of the treasure stupa, came a loud voice of praise, saying, well, world-honored Sakyamuni. For the sake of the great assembly, you are able to teach the wonderful Dharma Flower Sutra of great impartial wisdom, the Dharma by which bodhisattvas are taught and which Buddhas protect and keep in mind. It is just as you say, world-honored Sakyamuni. All that you say is true. Then the 4 groups, seeing the great treasure stupa in the air and hearing the voice that came from the stupa, were filled with joy in the Dharma and with wonder at these unprecedented things. They got up from their seats and, reverently putting their palms together, withdrew to one side. Meanwhile, a bodhisattva great one, named Great Delight in Preaching, perceiving uncertainty in the minds of the human and heavenly beings, asuras, and others of all the worlds, spoke to the Buddha, saying, World-honored one, for what reason has this treasure stupa sprung out of the earth, and this voice come from within it? Then the Buddha told Great Delight in Preaching Bodhisattva, in this treasure stupa there is the whole body of the Tathagata. Once in the past, innumerable tens of millions of billions of countless worlds to the east, in a land named Treasure Purity, there was a Buddha named Abundant Treasures. When that Buddha was originally practicing the Bodhisattva way, he made a great vow, saying, after I become a Buddha, and then extinct, if there is a place in any land in the universe where the Dharma Flower Sutra is taught, in order that I may listen to it, my stupa will appear there, bearing testimony to the sutra and praising it, saying, well done. When that Buddha had finished the Buddha way, his extinction approaching, in the midst of a great assembly of human and heavenly beings, he said to the monks, after my extinction, if anyone wants to make offerings to my whole body, they should put up a great stupa. Thus, throughout all the worlds of the universe, in any place at all where someone teaches the Dharma Flower Sutra, by his divine powers and the power of his vow, that Buddha has his treasure stupa, containing his whole body, appear before them, and praises the sutra, saying, well done, well done. Great delight in preaching. It is because just now the Tathagata Abundant Treasures heard the Dharma Flower Sutra being taught that his stupa sprang up from the earth, bearing praise and saying, well done, well done. Then, Great Delight in Preaching Bodhisattva, because of the divine powers of the Tathagata, said to the Buddha, world-honored one, we want to see this Buddha's body. The Buddha said to Great Delight in Preaching Bodhisattva, the Great One, this Buddha, Abundant Treasures, has taken a profound vow, saying, When my treasure stupa appears in the presence of one of the Buddhas so that I can hear the Dharma Flower Sutra, if someone wants me to show my body to the four groups, let the Buddhas who are embodiments of that Buddha and are preaching the Dharma in the worlds of the 10 directions return together and assemble in one place. Then my body will appear. Thus, great delight in preaching, I must now assemble the Buddhas who are my embodiments and are preaching the Dharma in all the worlds. Great delight in preaching replied to the Buddha, World-honored one, we would also like to see the Buddhas who embody you, and worship and make offerings to them. Then the Buddha emitted a beam of light from the tuft of white hair, immediately making visible all the Buddhas in 5 million billion myriads of lands. All those lands had crystal for their ground, and were adorned with jeweled trees and jeweled robes. They were filled with countless tens of millions of billions of bodhisattvas. Jeweled awnings were hung there, and nets of jewels were overhead. All the Buddhas in those lands preached various teachings with great, wonderful voices, and innumerable tens of millions of billions of bodhisattvas were also seen there, filling those lands and teaching the Dharma for the multitude. Then each of the Buddhas in the 10 directions spoke to his multitudes of bodhisattvas, saying, Good sons, now we have to go to Sakyamuni Buddha's world and make offerings to the treasure stupa of the Tathagata abundant treasures. Then those Buddhas, each bringing a great bodhisattva as his attendant, arrived at this world and went to the foot of a jeweled tree. Each of the jeweled trees was 500 leagues high, adorned with branches, leaves, flowers, and fruit. Under each of those jeweled trees was a lion's seat, 5 leagues high, also decorated with large jewels. Then the Buddhas went to those seats and sat cross-legged on them. Then all the Buddhas, each seated on a lion's seat under a jeweled tree, sent their attendants, each with a handful of precious flowers, to make inquiries of Sakyamuni Buddha, telling them, Good sons, go to Holy Eagle Peak, where Sakyamuni Buddha is, and say to him, as I am instructing you, Are your illnesses and troubles few? In spirit and energy are you well? And are your bodhisattvas and shravakas at peace? Then, making offerings to the Buddha by sprinkling these precious flowers before him, and say this, Such and such a Buddha would like to have this treasure stupa opened. All the Buddhas sent their attendants in this way. Then Sakyamuni Buddha, seeing the Buddhas who embodied him assembled together, each seated on a lion's seat, and hearing that those Buddhas all wanted the treasure stupa to be opened, immediately got up from his seat and went up into the air. All 4 groups stood up, put their palms together, and gazed at the Buddha in rapt attention. Then Sakyamuni Buddha opened the door of the stupa of the 7 precious materials with the fingers of his right hand. From the stupa there came a great sound, like the withdrawing of the bar when the gate to a great city is opened. Suddenly, the whole congregation saw the Tathagata abundant treasures on a lion's seat on the treasure stupa, with his whole body in one piece, sitting as though he were in meditation. And they heard him say, well done, Sakyamuni Buddha. You have preached this Dharma Flower Sutra gladly, which is what I have come to this place to hear. Then the 4 groups, seeing the Buddha who had passed away and had been extinct for innumerable tens of millions of billions of eons, speak such words as these, praising such an unprecedented event, scattered heaps of precious flowers from heaven on Abundant Treasures Buddha and on Sakyamuni Buddha. Abundant Treasures Buddha offered half his seat within the treasured stupa to Sakyamuni Buddha, saying, Sakyamuni Buddha, take this seat. Then Sakyamuni Buddha entered the stupa, took half the seat, and sat with folded legs. Seeing the two Tathagatas sitting with folded legs on the lion seat in the stupa of the 7 precious materials, those in the great assembly then thought, "The Buddhas are sitting high and far away. It would be good if the Tathagatas would use their divine powers to enable all of us to be up in the air." Immediately, Sakyamuni Buddha used his divine powers to bring all of the great assembly to where he was up in the air. In a loud voice, he addressed all the 4 groups, saying, "Who is able to teach the wonderful Dharma Flower Sutra everywhere throughout this world? Now indeed is the time. Before long the Tathagata will enter Nirvana. So that it will last forever, the Buddha wants to entrust this wonderful Dharma Flower Sutra to someone." Then the world-honored one, wanting to say what he meant once again, spoke in verse. "This holy Lord, world-honored one, though long extinct, sits in his treasure stupa and comes here for the sake of the Dharma. How then can anyone not be dutiful for the sake of the Dharma? This Buddha passed away countless eons ago, yet in place after place he listens to the Dharma, because such chances are rare. This Buddha's original vow was, 'After my extinction, wherever I go, wherever I am, it will always be to hear the Dharma.' And my embodiments, Buddhas as numerable as the sands of the Ganges, have come to hear the Dharma and to see the extinct, abundant treasures Tathagata. Leaving his wonderful land and a multitude of disciples, human and heavenly beings and dragon gods, and all their offerings to him, each has come to this place so that the Dharma may live for a long time. One by one, the Buddhas have gone under the jewel trees. They are like lotus flowers, decorating a clear and cool pond. Under those jeweled trees, seated on the lion seats, the Buddhas are brilliant and resplendent. Just as in the darkness of night, great torches burn brightly, from them comes a wonderful fragrance spreading over all the lands. Living beings, showered in this fragrance, are beside themselves with joy. To this great assembly I ask, after my extinction, who can receive and embrace, read and recite this sutra? Let them come before the Buddha now and declare their vow. This abundant treasures, though he passed away long ago, in accord with his great vow, roars like a lion. The Tathagata abundant treasures, and I myself, and the assembled Buddhas embodying me, certainly know this intention. If anyone is able to keep the Dharma, they should make a great vow so that it may live for a long time. One who is able to keep this Sutra Dharma has already made offerings to me and to abundant treasures. This abundant treasures Buddha, living in the treasure stupa, is always willing to go anywhere for the sake of this sutra. One who keeps this sutra also has made offerings to all the Buddhas embodying me assembled here, who adorn and make resplendent all the worlds. Anyone who teaches this sutra will be able to see me and the Tathagata abundant treasures, and also the Buddhas embodying me. All my good sons and good daughters should carefully consider this. This is a difficult task, requiring the making of a great vow. if one taught all the other sutras, numerous as the sands of the Ganges, that would not really be difficult. But after the Buddha's extinction, in the midst of an evil age, if someone teaches this sutra, that indeed will be difficult. But after my extinction, if someone copies and keeps this sutra, or causes others to copy it, this indeed will be difficult. If someone reads this sutra aloud for even a moment, this indeed will be difficult. If anyone embraces this sutra and preaches it even to one person, this indeed will be difficult. If one embraced the storehouse of 84,000 teachings and the 12 divisions of the sutras and preached them to others, leading those who hear to gain the 6 divine powers, even if one could do all this, that would not be difficult. But after my extinction, if anyone hears and accepts this sutra and inquires about its meaning, this indeed will be difficult. If one taught the Dharma and led tens of millions of billions of countless innumerable beings, as many as the sands of the Ganges, to become arhats with the 6 divine powers, even if one conferred such benefits, that would not be difficult. But after my extinction, if anyone is able to honor and embrace such a sutra as this, that indeed will be difficult. For the sake of the Buddha way, in innumerable lands, from the beginning until now, I have taught many sutras everywhere. Among them all, this sutra is the most excellent. Anyone who is able to embrace it embraces the body of the Buddha. Good sons and good daughters, after my extinction, who will be able to receive and embrace, read and recite this sutra? Let them come before the Buddha now and declare their vow. This sutra is so difficult to embrace. If anyone embraces it, even for a short time, I will be pleased, and so will all the Buddhas. Someone who can do this will be praised by all the Buddhas. Such a one will attain quickly the unexcelled Buddha way. Devadatta. At that time, the Buddha addressed the bodhisattvas, the human and heavenly beings, and the 4 groups, saying, "Through innumerable eons in the past, I tirelessly sought the Dharma Flower Sutra. Throughout those many eons, I was a king who vowed to seek unexcelled awakening. Never faltering and wanting to become fully developed in the 6 transcendental practices, the king diligently and unstintingly gave alms, not sparing his body or life.
great, man. You know, kind of technology out there. You had started out with the idea that television was an education. Film education. Story. That story is a real situation. Changing. That's great. Plays as real people, real stories. It's an educational. Education. Oh. Education. Technology. But no, it's out. Audience. Wow, they already have it. Well, man. Already have it. Experience. Studio, you know, I got a studio, but hey, you're traveling and fucking there. What the fuck are you traveling for? Yeah, it's car, train, to that. On the day. Already friend. Organized from all that events. So that's trying to do that with John. Didn't need anything to do with socialism, right? Yeah. Get together to well, who's gonna do this, who's gonna do that. No, the 2 million of motherfuckers were there that day. 1776. They born in the country. John Reed was born in America, got a DNA code. The DNA code was like 6. Nothing to do with fucking European. Not for John, not for her. This is not foreign ideas, those are American ideas. You treat a motherfucker like that. Or was it? That was his power. Or incarnated. It's an incarnation. What did I think of it? Every motherfucker I see is an incarnation. That's what the Lord's trying to teach us. Every motherfucker is some purpose. That's why we're made. Though it is not everybody got a purpose. Oh man, I ain't interested. It's a choice people make. It's news. Oh. They realized that they were American, they could change any fucking thing they want to change. Just by changing who? Themselves. Don reads and this chick for America. Just like so that's what is affiliation is an incarnation. But that technology, beginning of the century, didn't exist. Film, newspaper, illustrations, photography. John is that's the book, literary world. Here we are today. This is happening. This is big. No, I'm on getting. I'm here with you always. This fucking technology is done. I'm here with you always.